Welcome back, guys, to this episode. Um, this kind of thought, what we're going to chat about in the next however many minutes, just really popped into my head. I was like, you know what, let me sit down to record. I don't really know what it is yet that will come forward. And before I hit record, it had popped up in a way of what is your villain and what is your superpower. And I've been thinking a lot about personally about like what it is it that continues to stop me from being who I want to be or actually do what I want to do. Like, what is your highest self sabotager? Because at the end of the day, we ourselves are the thing that gets in our way of doing whatever we actually want to do. And I think about this when I was traveling or getting ready to travel, and I almost self sabotage so many times of not thinking that like I could do this thing, that I could travel. Will I be like the other solo travelers? Will I meet anybody? I just had all of these personal self doubts, and I would have let this become a self fulfilling prophecy if I had done so. And what really helped me get over that was just by acting and just by doing. And it just made me think about like how we make other people and other things in society say like, oh, like our parents or like friends or our job or society in itself or the system or the matrix and stuff. And we make these things the villain in our story of like why X, Y, and Z can't be done, or why I can't do this, or why I'm not able to fully be myself, why I'm always being held back and, not living abundant or not living my purpose or not chasing my dreams. Like, I don't want to be judged or my family's going to think this, whatever it is for you. And what just got in my mind was just that we make other people and other things the villain in our story, whereas we ourselves are the actual villain. You know what I mean? Other people are literally just mirrors for us, reflecting back to what we have a difficult time seeing for ourselves. And that's literally what being mirrors are. That's what we're here to do for each other, is mirror back what is really like dormant in our subconscious that we don't really are, that we're not aware of in ourselves. And that's when we can even start to think like, if we don't like somebody or whatnot, like what is it triggering in us? What is that person doing that we are maybe not fully accepting in ourselves, or also recognizing in ourselves as a pattern, or where can we learn from this? So it's like almost challenging. It was challenging myself, and I'm going to challenge you too as you listen to this. How is it that you can bring back that um, kind of ownership of whatever you're really dealing with right now to yourself? Like, how can you de-villainize whoever you're villainizing right now, and put that on yourself? How are you holding yourself back? How are you not fully expressing yourself? How are you not chasing after your dreams? How are you not using your voice and standing up for what you want? And it just kind of clicked with me as I was watching a video and an interview today, about two people talking about identity and how identity can really make or break like who we are and what we decide to do with our lives, is how we identify with who we are. Like, do you identify as being lazy? Do you identify as being a healthcare worker? Do you identify as a gym goer? Do you identify as being confident or not having confidence? And it just made me feel, just like made me like really start to question like, how am I identifying within myself, and then how am I using that against me, and then also how could I be using that for myself to change and shift into not villainize myself, but also start to believe more in my superpowers. And so there's two things in here. The first that we had just discussed about the villain part. Where is it in your life that you are making other people out to be a villain when you actually are your own villain? And how can you really own that part of yourself and be like, yep, I take full responsibility of that. I'm the reason why, because no one can really make you feel a certain way or affect you to not do something, or, you know, it's just at the end of the day, we can think that somebody has that power over you only if you let that person or thing have power over you. So at the end of the day, it's you that's choosing the life that you're living right now. It's you that is making those decisions, or is not showing up for yourself, or decides to go to the gym or doesn't go to the gym, or decides to be creative, doesn't be creative. It's me who decides to whether or not I feel like because I'll give you an example of mine that I've been dealing with is the villain for myself is self-doubting and really thinking that what do I have to say to actually make podcast interviews, or share my spiritual views or things like that. I really sometimes downplay myself so much where I'll just fall out of the loop in recording and in doing the work that I actually really do believe in and believe that it is part of my soul mission and my calling. And I will self sabotage myself to thinking that I actually don't have enough value to give. How dumb is that? So that's how in this chapter of my story, that's how I continue to villainize myself, and think that everybody else has way better, more important, more valuable information to give. And I'll just let them do that, and I'll just consume. And instead of saying, no, I actually have a lot to offer too, and my experiences are worthy to share. And I also would like to help impact people alongside that, that I allowed to impact my life. So that's where I continue to villainize myself. And it's within my own um, personal pursuit or personal promise to continue that, and to say, okay, I recognize that this is the piece of me that wants to sabotage. How can I now flip that, take accountability of it, know that it's nobody's else's, no other circumstances is allowing me to do that, rather than it's just me. So the other part of this conversation that I want to have is, recognizing where you have that superpower. And what are your superpowers? Are you even aware of what your superpowers are? Are you a really good communicator? Do you love to read? Do you get really creative with doing projects and paints? Do you, make people feel good? Do you sing really well? Like, your superpowers are your innate talents that you really enjoy doing. And it's here to really, those things are here for us to share with the world. It's like our talents are meant to be shared, are meant to be seen, and meant to be known. And how are we allowing that to happen? And it doesn't have to be for a career, it could be for your own passion projects. But we are creative beings, we're spiritual beings, we're having this human experience where we get to express all of our energy into what we want to create into the world. So it's like, are we choosing to really live the being so clinged on to like this villain part of ourselves, where we just sabotage and mess everything up and be like, oh, I always do this, like I never follow through. Like, how can we shift that into really focusing on our superpowers of what we are good at and what we can do, and continue to hold ourselves accountable for doing that? And that was the topic that was prosed in this interview that I was listening to about identity, and how identity can shift that for us. Like, am I identifying as a podcaster? Am I identifying as a YouTuber? Am I identifying as a spiritual leader? All these things that I know to be true, that I really have a difficult time sometimes owning, and I will just kind of slough that off to something in the background. And I just think this is a really valuable thing for us to mull over and to think about, and to really reflect on, to be like, where am I villainizing other people or situations for the reasons of my life? And I think that it's a bigger conversation to have, when we talk about our sovereignty with what we're choosing to focus on, what we're choosing to believe, what we're choosing to listen to read, to, create in our own lives of where is that all, everything that you're doing is creating your reality right now. And all the things that are in your reality that you choose are is that really helping you get better at your superpowers, or is that helping you live the actual dream life that you want to live? And it's not really like, I think, like when we talk about dream life and and choosing reality and stepping into your higher self, I think all those little kind of terms can be very misused in a way where like they feel like super fluffy. And for me, for me personally, I want to give like a massive eye roll to be like, oh my god, okay, get it. But it also doesn't feel very like grounded. It doesn't really feel like real in a way. You're like, okay, yeah, my higher self, or yeah, I want to live my dream life, but like it's not really, when I think about visioning my dream life, it feels like something that's like way outside of me, like years and years away. Whereas the life that we're currently living now, in the moment now that you're listening to this, is the only time and space that actually exists right now, is right now, not the past, not the future. So what are things that you can actually do in this present moment now to actually fulfill your dream life and do the things or be the person that you want to be in your quote unquote dream life, but actually bring it into the present moment? And that's what people start to actually really kind of anchor into. That's how we can like shift timelines and things like that. And but really it comes down to, how am I embodying the person that like I want to be? How are they acting? How are they thinking? How are they dressing? How are they showing up? And when I continue to perpetuate this, thoughts and feelings of doubtfulness and insecurities with my thoughts, with my episodes, with my skills, with my communication, it just continues to feed that like other reality that I don't want to choose, that I don't want to live in. So, how am I able to continue to show up for myself? It's by continuing to push publish. It's continuing to share things and my experiences, because I'm a natural storyteller. I love to tell stories. I love to share my experiences. I love to listen to other people's stories and experiences, and I think that's how we get to shift and grow so much. And that's how we get to learn from each other and really kind of have that exponential growth with one another, because we get to learn from somebody else's mistakes. And I think it comes down to really, what are the very simple actions that I can do every single day to really embody that version of myself? How am I waking up? How am I getting my thoughts primed? How is my posture? What am I saying to myself? What am I saying to others? What stories am I continuing to tell? And that was like a huge thing that I started to really realize on my travels, because when you meet somebody for the first time, especially when you're in a different country, you kind of end up giving, and this is like when you meet somebody new anywhere, but this, I really started to realize it when I was traveling this past year, is you kind of give like a synopsis story of your life to like catch the other person up to speed to like who you are, what you're about, what is your life right now, how are you living your life right now, how did you get here, and what are you planning to do, kind of thing. It's like, hi, my name is Erica XYZ, this is what you need to know about me. And then someone's like, oh, okay, bet, cool, and this is me. So it's like that little synopsis story. And what I ended up finding out is that like I kept on saying this story over and over and over about like how I got to where I was currently. But then that story never really, it like it stopped resonating with me, because I'm like, why am I telling this? This happened like months ago, or this happened years ago. Like, why am I still hanging on to the story when I actually don't really identify this way anymore? And it started to challenge like what I told other people about myself and what I valued about myself, what I actually wanted to share. And then it shifted what like I chose to share with other people. Like, and it also shifted the story that I was telling myself about myself. like I'm no longer the person that is super high stress type A, wants to plan every single thing about her life out. Like I used to resonate with that story so much. Like if you were to tell me just a few years ago that I would have spent a whole year with no real plan and no real living situation and keeping my stuff in storage and only have a one-way ticket, I would have been like, you're freaking nuts. But that was no longer that story anymore. I learned how to live in flow. I learned how to um, you know, um, go into that feminine energy. I learned how to release control. I learned how to go by my gut instinct rather than my logical instinct. And I didn't have to tell that story or part of myself anymore because that's not who I was anymore. So it's like also like, where are you continuing to tell people over and over your villain story of, oh, my parents did this, or this was my childhood, or this is my teacher said this, and you just cling on to that, and that just becomes your now story, even though that was your version of yourself maybe 10 years ago. Like, no, I'm not going to tell you about my childhood trauma. I think it's important to work through it. It's important to feel everything that is happening, and especially if you have scenarios that aren't felt fully or uh especially if that's trapped in your body. So I think this goes into a whole nother topic, but very briefly, I think it's a difference with feeling your feelings, working through your shadow stuff, doing your shadow work, working through your traumas. That's different, that's healthy, versus continuing to tell your story of that trauma and reliving those feelings and thoughts and those things over and over and over every time you identify with it. I think that we can shift that identity. And when we shift that identity to, no, I am healing, I am working through it, or I no longer attach my self worth to that anymore. I no longer attach my patterns to that. But that's all when it comes to recognizing what this villain side of us is, and how it just kind of feels like how we can identify with that shadow self or shadow side of ourselves now differently, when you can kind of ask yourself in a different way, because sometimes shadow work can be like, I don't know, that seems kind of vague and it's really broad. Everybody has different shadow works to do. But when I was thinking about it today, how to really cut um, to the kind of thick of it is really asking yourself, like, who, very quickly, is asking that question: who or what am I making the villain in my story? Where's that blame going? Is it on yourself? Is it too much on yourself? Or are you blaming things outside of yourself? So kind of check in with yourself and see, where is that villain? How can you take a healthy amount of self accountability towards that? And then how can you shift that villain story into a superpower story where you're just like, you know what? This is what I'm choosing to tell the story about now, or this is how I identify with myself, or this is what I'm choosing to tell people about myself rather than this. And I think it will make a really powerful shift. I mean, how could it not? And so I'm going to explore more of this myself, and I'm interested to see how this lands with you, or if this has unlocked anything with you. It's definitely made a huge kind of shift in myself today, where I'm just like, whoa, didn't really realize that this is what I was doing. And that's what we get to do when we uncover those kind of darker aspects or subconscious parts of ourselves, when we bring those to the forefront and look at it, and be able to shine that light and to be like, okay, no, this is why I'm doing this pattern over and over. This is what I actually believe about myself, and I don't want to believe that about myself anymore. I want to believe this. And it's shifting into that. But we can't make the shift before we can have the awareness of what that thing is. So yeah, make a list. What are my superpowers? What do I want to strengthen? And who are my villains in my story, and how can I reshift that story um, to make it a better one, like, you know so Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day after this, and I hope this landed for you. Let me know if this resonated with you. And yeah, I'm excited to see how it shifts your story and shifts your life too. So thanks so much for listening.